It started with a clip, just one video less than a minute long, recorded inside a church in Fort Worth. Bishop R stood at the pulpit, gripping the microphone, his voice shaking with fire. At first, it seemed like just another emotional church moment, but then he did something no one expected. He pointed directly at a man in the audience and called him out by name. "Brother James," he said, "you've been sitting here, smiling in my face and lying behind my back." The entire church froze. You could hear a pin drop. Some thought it was a joke. Others were stunned. But the man, Brother James, stood there in disbelief. He didn't say a word. He just stared. And then he left, walked out the side door and never came back. The clip went viral in hours. People reposted it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Everyone had something to say. Was the bishop out of line? Was this church discipline or public humiliation? Comments poured in. "This ain't church, it's a circus. He's protecting his flock. This is spiritual abuse. Nah, this is leadership." Two sides formed instantly. People were arguing in group chats, stitching the video, doing reaction videos. But one thing everyone agreed on: this wasn't normal. This wasn't how church was supposed to go. And then things got worse. The church started receiving threats, real ones, some anonymous, some bold, messages saying, "Watch your back, we know where you preach, better cancel that Sunday service." What started online had jumped into real life. And the bishop, he didn't back down. Instead, he brought in security, armed guards, metal detectors. The sanctuary turned into a fortress. People showed up to worship while looking over their shoulders. Mothers held their kids tighter. Ushers whispered to each other during offering. Everyone felt it, the fear, the tension. But Bishop R kept preaching like nothing was happening. This wasn't just a fallout, this was a storm. And right when people thought it couldn't get more bizarre, that's when Marvin Winans' name came up. Yes, that Marvin Winans, gospel legend, pastor, icon. His sermon from weeks earlier had suddenly resurfaced. In it, he warned pastors about betrayal. He said, "The ones who smile with you will be the first to turn on you." His tone was sharp, almost prophetic. Some people connected the dots too fast. They said Bishop R had been quoting Winans in meetings, warning his leaders, using his sermon like it was a prophecy for his own church. Suddenly, Marvin wasn't just a singer. He was the unexpected voice fueling the fire, and Bishop R, he leaned into it. During a live stream, he played a clip from Winans' sermon. He looked straight into the camera and said, "This is what I've been dealing with. Y'all thought I was crazy." He wasn't asking for understanding. He was demanding it, and his followers clapped. In the chat, people were dropping fire emojis and "Yes, Bishop." But outside that bubble, the criticism grew louder. Other pastors spoke out. Former members started talking. One woman said, "It felt more like a cult than a church." Another said, I gave that church 10 years of my life. I thought we were family, but family doesn't humiliate you in public." And still, Bishop R did not apologize. Not once, not even a little. He said, "God told me to expose it." He made it clear he wasn't going to bend under pressure. He wasn't going to walk back anything. In fact, he said something that shook people even more. "There's more coming," he said. "Y'all haven't seen nothing yet." The second wave didn't come quietly. It crashed in like thunder. Just days after Bishop R's bold declaration, screenshots began leaking online. Group chats, emails, even private messages from inside the church leadership circle. And they weren't pretty. One message read, "We got to handle this before it gets out of hand." Another said, "The bishop's watching everything. Be careful what you say." Suddenly, people outside the church had a front row seat to a storm that had been brewing behind closed doors for months. The vibe shifted. This wasn't just a viral moment anymore. It was a full-blown crisis, and it was getting messier by the hour. People started digging. Old sermons were pulled up. Financial reports were questioned. A few ex-members stepped forward with receipts, literal ones. Tithes, donations, building fund pledges that, according to them, went nowhere. One woman shared how she gave her last $300 because she believed in the vision the bishop sold. But when she lost her job and asked for help, she said she was ignored. They told me to pray harder, she cried in a live interview. Her voice cracked with pain, but it hit hard with viewers. The story spread like wildfire. But the biggest shock came when a former assistant pastor spoke out. Quiet guy, never had much of a social media presence. But he went live one night, face half in the shadows, and said, "I ain't bitter, I ain't mad, I'm just tired of the lies." What followed was a 40-minute bombshell. He described private meetings where Bishop R allegedly rehearsed confrontations like it was a show, he said. He claimed some of the viral moments were planned, set up to make the bishop look powerful, prophetic, and then he dropped the line that nobody saw coming. Y'all don't know the half. The Marvin Winans sermon wasn't just inspiration, it was strategy. That one sentence opened the floodgates. The internet lit up. People started calling it Operation Pulpit Power. Memes popped up. Videos dissected every sermon, every side glance, every microphone drop. Even comedians jumped in. Late night shows made jokes about metal detectors in churches and preachers playing detective. But under all the jokes was real tension. The public didn't know who to believe anymore. Inside the church, things turned cold. People stopped hugging. Leaders started skipping meetings. Rumors flew that cameras were being installed in the office areas. Some said it was for protection. Others whispered it was for control. But everyone agreed this wasn't the same place anymore. The love was fading, replaced by suspicion. Members started leaving, quietly at first, a few here and there, then whole families. And every exit brought another wave of questions. Still, Bishop R stayed loud. He posted more, preached harder, stood taller. He said, "They thought I would fold, but I was built for this." Some admired him, said he was standing strong like David before Goliath. Others rolled their eyes and asked, "But who's the real Goliath here?" That question kept floating around. No clear answer, just more confusion, more division. Then came the Sunday nobody expected. A new voice appeared at the pulpit. Not Bishop R, not a guest preacher. It was Brother James. Yes, that Brother James. The same man Bishop R had called out. He walked up slowly, holding the mic with shaking hands. The church was dead silent. People stared, phones out, live stream on, and what he said flipped the entire story upside down. He took a long pause before he spoke. You could feel the tension in the room, like the walls were holding their breath. Brother James looked around and said, "I didn't come to fight, I came to free myself." That one line hit like a punch to the chest. Some people gasped, others just froze. Then, with no script and no fear, he started telling his side of the story. He said things most people didn't want to believe. That the argument caught on video was never supposed to happen like that. That weeks before the viral service, he had tried, quietly, to step away, to resign. "I felt used," he said, "like I was just there to play a part, smile, nod, and stay in line." But the moment he voiced concern, everything changed. Meetings stopped, texts got ignored, and then came the accusations, the betrayal. He talked about long nights, being locked out of the church systems, his name removed from programs, people he'd mentored for years suddenly acting like he didn't exist. The silence, he said, hurt worse than the shouting. The congregation sat still, some wiping tears, others avoiding eye contact. Nobody expected this kind of raw truth, and nobody expected what came next either. Brother James reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. He held it up. "This right here," he said, "is everything. Emails, voice notes, meeting recordings. Y'all want to know the truth? It's in here." The church erupted. Some shouted for him to stop. Others clapped. A few even stood up. It wasn't just drama now, it was dangerous. Security moved toward the stage, the mic cut out, the live stream froze. For a full minute, everything went dark. Phones started buzzing, texts flew like wildfire. They cut him off. Did you see that? Is he okay? It felt like a movie, but this was real life, happening in real time. And outside, the city was watching. News stations picked it up. Hashtags exploded. Had Let Him Speak started trending. People demanded transparency, not just from the church, but from churches everywhere. This isn't just one pastor, one post said. This is a system. Old members who had stayed silent now started speaking up. Stories came pouring out from other churches, other bishops, other scandals that had been buried for years. Meanwhile, Bishop R went completely silent. No posts, no sermons, no comments. His social media went dark. People started speculating, was he hiding, planning a comeback, or had he finally realized the storm wasn't going to pass? Then, just as people started to settle into the silence, something unexpected happened. A video leaked, not just any video, security footage, grainy, time-stamped, and clearly from inside the church office. And what it showed was enough to make even his most loyal followers question everything. The leaked footage showed a side of Bishop R no one had ever seen before. It wasn't just one clip, it was a series of videos, all from different days, stitched together, each one more damaging than the last. In one, Bishop R could be heard yelling behind a closed door, throwing something against the wall. In another, he was on a call, speaking in a voice far from the calm tone he used during sermons. "Get him out before Sunday," he said. "I don't care how, just make sure he doesn't speak again." The person on the other side of the call remained quiet, but the tone said it all. This wasn't about misunderstanding. This was about control. The final clip was the one that set everything on fire. It showed a private meeting, just Bishop R and a small group of senior church staff. The audio was clear. They were planning what would later be called damage control. Not repentance, not reconciliation, but how to spin the story, silence Brother James, and protect the church's public image. "If he talks," Bishop R said, "he burns the whole place down." The clip ended there, but the damage had already been done. Within hours, news outlets jumped on the story. Articles flooded the internet. Podcasts dissected every word of the leaked tape. Former members gave interviews. One woman said she had seen similar patterns years ago, but was told to stay silent for the good of the church. Another man shared that he too had been pushed out after questioning decisions. Suddenly, Brother James's story wasn't rare. It was part of a pattern. Church headquarters issued a rushed statement. It was short and cold. "We are aware of the footage and are conducting an internal review." But people weren't buying it. They didn't want a review. They wanted truth. They wanted Bishop R to speak, but he didn't. Days passed. Rumors swirled. He had fled the city, gone underground, even checked into a private retreat. No one knew for sure. Then something happened that no one saw coming. Brother James, the man everyone had watched break down, rise up, and risk it all, showed up again. Not online, not through a press release, but standing outside the church gates, calm, steady, and holding that same manila envelope. Reporters swarmed, cameras clicked, but he didn't look shaken. He looked sure. He stepped forward and said, "This isn't about revenge, it's about truth. And today, I'm handing this over to the people who can do something real with it." Then he walked straight into a building, one that wasn't a church, but a courthouse. The story didn't end in the sanctuary. It ended in a legal battle that would change the face of that church forever. Investigations were launched, financial records were unsealed, more victims came forward, and for the first time in a long time, people weren't afraid to speak because one man chose to. And that's how a Sunday service turned into a revolution.